What happens when Britain's most honest judge in entertainment walks onto a morning talk show expecting a simple chat about his latest project, only to face a host who seems determined to tear him down on live television? It only took 33 seconds of airtime for one question to ignite a clash so fierce that security had to step in. Cameras kept rolling as the studio audience sat in stunned silence, and Simon Cowell did something he had never done before. Walk off a set mid-interview. The morning started like any other on the Lorraine Kelly show. The studio lights gleamed. The audience filled their seats, ready for their dose of morning entertainment. Simon Cowell was the guest everyone had been waiting for. He walked onto the set with his usual confident stride, wearing his signature black shirt, and settled into the guest chair across from Lorraine Kelly. Beside her sat two regular panelists, Marcus Webb, an entertainment journalist known for his sharp commentary, and Rachel Devine, a former television producer who had worked in the industry for decades. Lorraine opened with what seemed like a warm greeting. "Simon, lovely to have you here this morning," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "We've been dying to talk to you." "Thanks for having me," Simon replied, genuinely pleased to be there. "Always good to be here." But something shifted immediately. Lorraine leaned forward, and her tone changed. "So Simon, let's get straight into it. Your shows have been accused of exploiting vulnerable people for ratings. How do you sleep at night knowing you've built an empire on other people's dreams and failures?" The audience gasped. Simon's expression froze. This was not the introduction anyone had expected. "I'm sorry, what?" Simon said, his voice measured, but clearly taken aback. "That's quite an accusation to start with." Marcus Webb jumped in, clearly enjoying the tension. "Oh, come on, Simon. We all know the format. You parade people in front of cameras, tear them apart, and the public eats it up. Lorraine has a point." Simon took a breath, maintaining his composure. "With respect, that's not what happens at all. We give people opportunities. Real opportunities. Many contestants have gone on to have incredible careers." "Opportunities?" Lorraine scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. "Is that what you call humiliating people on national television? Because from where I sit, it looks more like cruelty dressed up as entertainment." Rachel Devine nodded along. "I've worked in television for 30 years, Simon, and I've never seen someone be as dismissive and rude to hopefuls as you are. It's actually quite disturbing to watch." Simon shifted in his seat, clearly frustrated, but trying to remain professional. "Look, I think you're misunderstanding the entire premise of what we do. People come on these shows willingly. They know what they're signing up for. And honest feedback, even when it's tough, is valuable." "Honest feedback," Lorraine repeated mockingly. "That's a lovely way to describe telling someone they sound like a cat being strangled, or that they should give up on their dreams entirely." "Those are exaggerations," Simon countered, his patience beginning to wear thin. "And taken completely out of context. The point of the show is to find genuine talent, and sometimes that means being truthful about who has it and who doesn't." Marcus leaned back with a smug expression. "But you enjoy it though, don't you? The power, the control, watching people crumble under your criticism." "That's absolutely not true," Simon said firmly. "I don't enjoy crushing anyone's spirit. What I enjoy is discovering real talent and helping them succeed, which, by the way, has happened countless times." Lorraine wasn't backing down. "Let's talk about the money then, shall we? You've made millions, hundreds of millions actually, from these shows. Meanwhile, the contestants get what? A brief moment of fame before being forgotten? The winners get recording contracts, management, promotional support," Simon explained, his voice rising slightly. "They get a genuine shot at a career in one of the most difficult industries in the world. That's more than most people ever get." "A shot," Rachel interjected sarcastically. "How generous of you. While you sit on your yacht, they're struggling to make ends meet after their 15 minutes are up." Simon's jaw tightened. You're painting a completely false picture here. This is bordering on slander. Slander? Lorraine laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Oh, Simon, don't be so sensitive. Surely someone who dishes it out as much as you do can take a little criticism. There's a difference between criticism and baseless attacks, Simon shot back. I came here to talk about the new season, about the talent we've found, about the positive aspects of what we do. Instead, you've ambushed me with this ridiculous narrative. Marcus shook his head condescendingly. It's not a narrative, Simon. It's the truth. You've built a brand on being the mean judge, the villain. Own it. I'm not a villain for having standards, Simon argued, his voice growing louder. I'm not a villain for being honest. Would you rather I lie to people? Tell them they're brilliant when they're not? How does that help anyone? There's being honest, and then there's being cruel, Lorraine said coldly. And you, Simon, have crossed that line more times than I can count. You mock people. You belittle them. You make them feel worthless. That is not what I do, Simon insisted, standing his ground. And frankly, I'm shocked that you, of all people, would characterize it that way. You've been in this industry long enough to know how it works. Rachel jumped in again. We know how it works, Simon. We also know that there are ways to give feedback without destroying someone's confidence, something you clearly never learned. This is unbelievable, Simon muttered, shaking his head. You invited me here under false pretenses. False pretenses? Lorraine's eyebrows shot up. We invited you here to have an honest conversation. Are you saying you can't handle honesty? How ironic. An honest conversation involves listening, not a coordinated attack, Simon replied sharply. The three of you clearly decided before I even sat down that you were going to come after me. Marcus smirked. Oh, playing the victim now, are we? That's rich coming from you. I'm not playing anything, Simon said, his composure slipping. I'm pointing out that this is ambush journalism at its worst. You're twisting everything I've done, everything I stand for, to fit some agenda. Lorraine leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. The only agenda here is accountability, Simon. You've spent years judging others. Maybe it's time someone judged you. And you've appointed yourself judge and jury, have you? Simon challenged. How very noble of you. Someone has to, Rachel chimed in. Someone has to call out the damage you've done to people's mental health, to their self-esteem. Simon's eyes flashed with anger. What damage? Show me the damage. Show me the evidence of the supposed harm I've caused. The evidence is everywhere, Lorraine declared dramatically. Former contestants speaking out about their experiences, talking about the trauma of being humiliated on your shows. Trauma? Simon repeated incredulously. They auditioned for a talent competition. They weren't forced into anything, and the vast majority of people who've been on my shows have nothing but positive things to say about the experience. Marcus waved his hand dismissively. Of course they do. They're afraid of you. Afraid of what you might do to their careers if they speak out. That's paranoid nonsense, Simon snapped. I don't have some blacklist. I don't go after people who criticize me. This is absurd. What's absurd, Lorraine said icily, is that you can't see the harm you've caused. Or maybe you can see it, and you just don't care. I care deeply about the people on my shows, Simon protested. I care about giving them opportunities. I care about the music industry and finding real talent. What I don't care about is this circus you've created here today. Rachel scoffed. Circus? That's funny coming from the ringmaster of the biggest circus on television. You know what? Simon said, his voice dropping to a dangerously quiet level. I've had enough of this. I came here in good faith, and you've done nothing but attack me from the moment I sat down. Good faith? Lorraine laughed mockingly. Good faith would be admitting that your entire career has been built on exploiting people's insecurities. That's it, Simon said, standing abruptly. I'm not sitting here listening to this. Anymore. Marcus looked delighted. Oh, you're leaving? Can't take the heat? There's a difference between heat and a witch hunt, Simon retorted, and this is definitely the latter. Lorraine stood as well, her voice rising. Sit back down, Simon. We're not finished. Oh, we're absolutely finished, Simon replied firmly. This interview is over. You can't just walk out, Rachel protested. We have more questions. More ambush questions designed to make me look bad, Simon challenged. No thank you. I've given you more than enough time already. Lorraine's face flushed with anger. This is my show, Simon. You don't get to decide when the interview is over. Actually, I do, Simon said calmly, unhooking his microphone. I'm a guest, not a prisoner, and I'm choosing to leave. Marcus stood up, pointing at Simon. This is exactly what we're talking about. You can't handle being questioned. You can't handle not being in control. I can handle questions just fine, Simon shot back. What I can't handle is a setup. You three made up your minds about me before I walked through that door, and nothing I could say was going to change that. Maybe because the truth about you is pretty clear, Lorraine said venomously. You're an egomaniac who built an empire on other people's pain. Simon's eyes narrowed. And you're a talk show host who just destroyed any credibility you had by conducting the most unprofessional interview I've ever experienced. Congratulations. Rachel moved toward him. Don't you dare talk to Lorraine like that. She's a broadcasting legend. Then she should act like one, Simon replied coldly, instead of conducting a televised lynching. Lorraine's voice turned shrill. Lynching? You're comparing this to lynching? That's disgusting, Simon. Absolutely disgusting. I'm using it as a metaphor for a public attack, Simon clarified, his patience completely exhausted. But clearly, nuance is lost on you. Marcus stepped closer. You need to apologize to Lorraine right now. For what? Simon demanded. For defending myself against her baseless accusations? I don't think so. For being disrespectful, Rachel added. For being the arrogant, pompous person everyone knows you are. Simon looked at all three of them, shaking his head slowly. You know what's really sad? I actually respected all of you before today. I thought this would be a pleasant conversation. Instead, you've shown me exactly who you are. Lorraine's hands were on her hips now. And you've shown us who you are, Simon. A coward who runs away when confronted with the truth. The truth, Simon repeated bitterly. You wouldn't know the truth if it hit you in the face. You've created a fiction about me to serve your own purposes. And when I push back, you call me a coward. That's rich. Just leave then, Marcus said dismissively. We don't need you here anyway. Oh, I'm leaving, Simon assured him. But not because you're telling me to. Because I have too much self-respect to continue participating in this farce. Rachel called out as he turned toward the exit. This will be all over the news, you know. Everyone will see you storming off. Simon paused and looked back. Let them. Let them see the full context of what happened here. Let them see how I was treated. I'm not worried about the truth coming out. Lorraine laughed bitterly. The truth? The truth is, you couldn't handle being in the hot seat for once. The truth, Simon said evenly, is that you conducted an ambush interview because you knew it would get you attention. Well, you've got your attention. I hope it was worth sacrificing your integrity. Marcus moved to block his path. You're not going anywhere until we're done with you. Simon's voice turned ice cold. Get out of my way. Or what? Marcus challenged. Or I'll call security and have you removed from my path, Simon replied calmly. Your choice. Lorraine interjected loudly. Security works for this show, Simon. They work for me. Then I'll walk around him, Simon said, moving to the side. Either way, I'm leaving. Rachel reached for his arm. You owe us an explanation for your behavior over the years. Simon pulled his arm away sharply. Don't touch me, and I don't owe you anything. Certainly not an explanation for doing my job. Your job, Lorraine spat. Is that what you call destroying people's confidence? A job? My job, Simon corrected, is finding talent and being honest about what I see. If you can't understand that, it's not my problem. Marcus threw his hands up. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. The arrogance. Call it what you want, Simon said, moving toward the studio exit. I call it self-preservation. I'm not going to stand here and be your punching bag. Lorraine called after him, her voice echoing through the studio. Everyone will know you walked out, Simon. Everyone will know you couldn't handle the pressure. Simon stopped at the door and turned one last time. Everyone will know I refused to participate in a hit job disguised as an interview. There's a difference. Rachel was almost shouting now. You're making a huge mistake walking out like this. The only mistake I made, Simon said quietly, was agreeing to come here in the first place. That's on me. But staying, that would be an even bigger mistake. You're a disgrace, Marcus called out. Simon smiled thinly. Coming from you, I'll take that as a compliment. Lorraine made one final attempt. If you walk out that door, you're proving everything we said about you is true. No, Simon replied calmly. If I walk out that door, I'm proving that I have boundaries and self-respect. Two things you clearly lack. How dare you? Rachel gasped. How dare I? Simon repeated. How dare you ambush a guest on live television? How dare you coordinate an attack and call it journalism? How dare you sit there on your high horses judging me when you've just demonstrated the worst kind of unprofessionalism I've ever witnessed? The three of them stood silent for a moment, clearly not expecting such a forceful response. Simon continued, his voice steady and controlled. I've been in this industry for decades. I've been criticized before. I've been called names before. But I've never, in all my years, experienced anything quite as distasteful as what just happened here. Lorraine found her voice again. You're being dramatic. Am I? Simon challenged. You accused me of exploitation, of cruelty, of destroying lives, without a shred of evidence, without giving me a fair chance to respond. And you call me dramatic? Marcus stepped forward again. We gave you plenty of chances to respond. You just didn't like the questions. Questions? Simon laughed humorlessly. Those weren't questions. They were accusations dressed up as questions. There's a difference, and you know it. Rachel pointed at him. You're deflecting. You're avoiding taking responsibility. Responsibility for what? Simon demanded. For having a successful career? For being good at what I do? For giving thousands of people opportunities they never would have had otherwise? For the ones you hurt along the way, Lorraine said quietly, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. Simon's expression hardened. Show me who I hurt. Give me names. Give me specifics. You can't, because you're dealing in generalities and assumptions. We don't need to give you names, Marcus argued. The pattern of behavior speaks for itself. What pattern? Simon pressed. The pattern of running successful shows? The pattern of discovering genuine talent? The pattern of being honest even when it's uncomfortable? Which pattern are we talking about? Lorraine threw her hands up. The pattern of being a bully, Simon. Plain and simple. I'm not a bully, Simon said firmly. A bully picks on the weak for no reason. I give feedback to people who are actively seeking it. That's not bullying. That's the entire premise of the show. Rachel shook her head. You can spin it however you want, but we all know the truth. Your truth, Simon corrected. Not the truth. Your version of events, filtered through your bias and your agenda. Marcus crossed his arms. Everyone has the same opinion about you, Simon. When are you going to accept that? Everyone? Simon raised an eyebrow. That's a bold claim. The millions of viewers who watch my shows every week might disagree. The contestants who've gone on to have successful careers might disagree. The industry professionals who respect what we do might disagree. Lorraine waved her hand dismissively. Those are people who benefit from you. Of course they'll defend you. Or maybe, Simon suggested, They defend me. Because they know the real story. Because they've actually experienced what it's like to work with me, unlike you three, who are basing your entire attack on... What exactly? Clips you've seen? Things you've read? Rachel leaned forward. We've done our research, Simon. We know exactly what we're talking about. Research, Simon scoffed. You mean you Googled my name and read a few hit pieces written by people with axes to grind? That's not research. That's confirmation bias. Marcus's face reddened. You're impossible to talk to. Absolutely impossible. Because I'm not rolling over and accepting your false narrative? Simon asked. Sorry to disappoint, but that's not how I operate. Lorraine stood up again, her voice rising. This is exactly the problem with you, Simon. You can't accept criticism. You can't admit when you're wrong. I can accept criticism just fine when it's valid, Simon replied. What I can't accept is a coordinated attack based on misrepresentations and lies. There's a difference. Rachel moved closer. No one is lying here except possibly you. Simon's eyes flashed. Careful, that's defamation, and unlike your other accusations, that one could actually land you in legal trouble. Are you threatening us? Marcus asked incredulously. I'm informing you, Simon said calmly. There's a line between aggressive questioning and slander, and you're dancing right on it. Lorraine laughed sharply. Now he's threatening legal action. How predictable. I'm not threatening anything, Simon clarified. I'm simply pointing out that words have consequences. Something you might want to remember. Rachel shook her head. We have freedom of speech, Simon. We can say what we like. Freedom of speech doesn't protect you from libel, Simon countered. But by all means, continue. I'm sure your legal team will love explaining that to you later. Marcus stepped between them. This has gotten completely out of hand. It got out of hand the moment I sat down, Simon said flatly. This was never meant to be a real interview. It was a setup from the start. Lorraine's expression turned cold. If you truly believed that, you would have left sooner. I stayed because I hoped it might improve, Simon admitted. I gave you the benefit of the doubt. My mistake. Rachel pointed toward his chair. You could still sit back down. We could start over. Simon laughed genuinely for the first time. Start over? Are you serious? After everything that's been said? No, thank you. So that's it? Marcus challenged. You're just going to walk away? That's it, Simon confirmed. I'm going to walk away with my dignity intact, which is more than any of you can say after today. Lorraine's voice turned pleading, but her eyes remained hard. Simon, please, let's have a rational discussion. A rational discussion requires rational participants, Simon replied, and based on the last 15 minutes, I'm not convinced that's possible here. Rachel tried again. We're all professionals here. We can work this out. Professionals don't ambush their guests, Simon said coldly. Professionals don't coordinate attacks. Professionals have integrity. You've demonstrated none of those qualities today. Marcus stepped forward one more time. You're being unfair. Unfair? Simon's voice rose slightly. You want to talk about unfair? You three ganged up on me from the opening question. You didn't give me a chance to discuss anything I actually came here to talk about. You twisted my words, misrepresented my actions, and attacked my character. And I'm being unfair. Lorraine tried to interrupt. Simon, if you would just... No, Simon cut her off firmly. I'm done listening. I gave you more than enough time to make your points. Now I'm making mine. This was unprofessional, unethical, and frankly, beneath all of you. Rachel's voice turned sharp. Don't lecture us about ethics. Someone needs to, Simon shot back, because clearly you've forgotten what journalistic integrity looks like. Marcus threw his hands up again. This is going nowhere. Finally, Simon said, something we can agree on, which is why I'm leaving. Right now. Lorraine made one last desperate attempt. The audience deserves to hear your side of the story. Simon looked at the silent, shocked audience members. The audience just watched you three attack me for 15 minutes straight. I think they've heard more than enough. And I think they're smart enough to see what really happened here today. Rachel stepped in his path again. You're making a scene. I'm making a scene? Simon looked at her in disbelief. You orchestrated this entire disaster, and I'm making a scene? The lack of self-awareness is stunning. Just go then, Marcus said angrily. Nobody wants you here anyway. That's been obvious from the start, Simon agreed. Which makes me wonder why you bothered inviting me in the first place. Oh wait, I know why. Because you wanted exactly this. You wanted conflict. You wanted drama. Well, congratulations. You got it. Lorraine's mask finally slipped completely. You know what, Simon? You're right. I did want to confront you. Someone had to. There it is, Simon said quietly. Finally, some honesty. Too bad it came too late. Rachel looked defiant now. We're not apologizing for holding you accountable. Accountable for what? Simon pressed one more time. You still haven't given me a single specific example of this supposed harm I've caused. Just vague accusations and personal attacks. Marcus pointed at him. Your entire career is the example. My entire career, Simon repeated slowly, has been about elevating talent, creating opportunities, and building platforms for artists to succeed. If you can't see that, it's because you don't want to see it. Lorraine shook her head. We see it differently. Clearly, Simon said, which is why there's no point in continuing this conversation. We're never going to agree, and I'm not going to waste any more of my time trying to convince you of reality. Rachel's voice turned mocking. Reality according to Simon Cowell. Reality according to facts, Simon corrected. According to the actual outcomes of the shows I've produced. According to the careers I've helped launch. According to the positive impact I've had on the entertainment industry. But sure, ignore all of that because it doesn't fit your narrative. Marcus moved toward the cameras. The cameras are still rolling, you know. Everything you're saying is being recorded. Good, Simon said emphatically. Let them record it. Let everyone see the full context of what happened here. I have nothing to hide. Lorraine stepped closer, her voice low and threatening. You're going to regret this. Simon met her gaze steadily. The only thing I regret is wasting my morning coming here. Everything else, I'm perfectly comfortable with. The studio fell silent for a moment, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. The audience sat frozen, unsure whether to applaud, gasp, or remain quiet. Simon took a deep breath and straightened his jacket. I'm going to leave now. I'm going to walk out that door with my head held high, knowing that I conducted myself with far more professionalism than any of you did today. Go ahead, Rachel said coldly. Run away. I'm not running, Simon corrected calmly. I'm choosing to remove myself from a toxic situation. There's a difference. Marcus laughed bitterly. Keep telling yourself that. I don't need to tell myself anything, Simon replied. I know what happened here. The audience knows what happened here. And soon, everyone watching at home will know what happened here. Lorraine made one final attempt to save face. This conversation isn't over, Simon. Yes, Simon said firmly, his hand on the studio door. It absolutely is. And with that, Simon Cowell pushed open the heavy studio door and walked out, leaving Lorraine Kelly, Marcus Webb, and Rachel Devine standing in stunned silence as the cameras continued to roll, capturing every second of the most explosive morning television moment in recent memory.